So, good evening to all of you. Uh, Today, this is your first lecture. Previously, I have tried to do in Google Meet, but there was some disturbance, noise disturbance, also some network problem was going on in my area. So, I am going to discuss with you through my YouTube channel. So, the first thing that I want to say is that I am going to take the two actually subjects I'm going to take you in this semester. One is your biotechnology and human welfare, which is your GE paper, and there is a core paper named as cell biology. That paper I am going to take you. Okay, including Sadin sir will also take this paper. Okay. Now, the first chapter that I'm going to discuss with you all about is your plasma membrane. Now, from the beginning, I'm going to discuss now what is plasma membrane actually. A plasma membrane encloses every type of cell. That means it is found in every cell. It forms a boundary around the cell actually, and it is found in both prokaryote and eukaryotic cell. Prokaryotes, bacteria, okay, all the unicellular organisms, they have also this type of plasma membrane. And eukaryotic cell, obviously, they have this plasma membrane present. It physically separates the cell cytoplasm from the surrounding cellular environment. Now, within the cytoplasm, all the cellular organelles are present, like your um, nucleus, mitochondria, then your endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, right, lysosome. So these organelles are found in the cytoplasm. So what does plasma membrane do? It try to separate the cell cytoplasm from the surrounding cellular environment. So just as to remain intact in that place. Third point, it is saying that plasma membrane is an ultra thin, elastic, living, dynamic, and selective transport barrier. So it is an ultra thin structure. Plasma membrane is a lipid bilayer. That means it consists of lipid molecules arranged like this. Two layer of lipid molecules are present. Okay, so that's why it is saying lipid bilayer. It has, and these are the actually fatty acid tails, okay, that arrange, and between them there are some proteins which are found on outside, interact with the outside in the inside, okay, known as peripheral proteins and your integral proteins, okay, so on. So normally, plasma membrane is ultra thin, although it is a lipid bilayer, elastic, living, dynamic. Dynamic means it constantly it's changing. It simply means that the lipid molecules are moving adjacent to each other. Sometimes they are also moving from one lipid layer to the other lipid layer and vice versa. Okay, from the inner lipid layer to the outer lipid layer, they are constantly changing. Sometimes it occurs, and more often it occurs that they are changing their position adjacent with each other, all the lipid molecules. So it is dynamic. And selective transport barrier, it simply means selective transport barrier means that it selectively allows the cell, it selectively allows the molecules, ions, to pass through the cell. Okay, like for instance glucose, an important macromolecule needed by the cell to get energy from it. Then some ions like sodium, potassium. Okay, so these specific ions, specific molecules are allowed to pass through this plasma membrane with by the structure that is made by the components that are made up by the plasma membrane. They allows this selective transport mechanism. And the fourth point is saying that it is a fluid mosaic assembly of molecule. Mosaic means they are not arranged in a equal way. Okay, it is even unevenly distribution of the proteins, lipids are found throughout the membrane. So it is a fluid mosaic assembly of molecules consisting of lipids, mainly phospholipids and cholesterol, proteins, and your carbohydrates. So it mainly consists of lipids. Most of the lipids that are found are your phospholipids and cholesterol, including some proteins that are mainly proteins are mainly involved in selectively allowing the molecules to pass through it, that is carrier proteins, channel proteins, and they also provide structural integrity to the cell, and carbohydrate molecules which are attached to the outer surface of the plasma membrane. Next, it is saying that plasma membrane control the entry of nutrients and exit of the waste products. This plasma membrane control the entry of nutrients and exit of the waste products, because the nutrients, sometimes what happened, we don't require that nutrients, okay, during certain conditions, so it controls that regulation, that now we have to enter our all the nutrients. Okay, for example I'm saying, in case of insulin, okay, like insulin is being produced from the beta cell of pancreas, and it is mainly produced when the blood glucose level is too much high, right? That means the blood is full of glucose. That glucose has to be inserted into the cell. At that time, the cell will has to allow the entry of nutrients with the help of this insulin, right? And the channels which are involved are your some protein channels are involved for transport of the glucose, are the glucose transporters. Okay, so it controls all the time, it does not allow that all the nutrients will pass. Okay, it regulates the exit and also the exit of waste products, and generate differences in ion concentration between the interior and exterior of the cell. So plasma membrane generally allows to create the difference in ion concentration, so that they can maintain that ion concentration inside and outside the cell with the help of protein molecules, with the help of energy. Okay, they maintain that ion concentration. The positive charge and negative charge inside and outside the cell is maintained by the plasma membrane actually. It also acts as a sensor of external signals, the signal molecules, the ligands, like for example some hormones, immunological signals. According to this signal, it also act as a it also act as a sensor. Okay, so it will respond to that external signals. If some hormone attached to the particular receptor, the receptor is made up of glycoprotein, means carbohydrate attached with protein, then some conformational change, some structural change will occur, and that leads to change in the structure, and that leads to some series of change of reactions that will occur inside the cell, and allows the cell to react or change in response to the environmental signals. So generally this plasma membrane as a sensor of external signals, if some from outside some molecule comes and binds, okay, it respond to that signal by changing their shape, by changing their structure, and thereby it cause the cell to mediate different type of metabolic reactions inside it. Okay, in response to that signals. So this was about the first page. Let us see the seventh point. Now, the cells of bacteria and plants have plasma membrane between the cell wall and cytoplasm. Okay, we all know that bacteria have a cell wall, plants also have a cell wall, and it also have the plasma membrane. So the plasma membrane of bacteria, the plasma membrane of plant uh, are located between the cell wall and cytoplasm. So between the cell wall and cytoplasm, there is the plasma membrane of bacteria and in plants also. But those cell which don't have cell wall, in that case the plasma membrane will act as the boundary. It forms the cell surface like animal cells don't have any cell wall. So what does this plasma membrane do? It will act as a boundary for that particular cell. Next point, all biological membranes, including the plasma membrane and internal membrane of some eukaryotic cells like membrane bounding endoplasmic reticulum, in short we say as ER, nucleus, mitochondria, chloroplast, Golgi apparatus, lysosomes, peroxisomes, etc., are similar in structure. So, all the biological membranes like the internal membrane that are found within the endoplasmic reticulum, in the nucleus, in mitochondria, in chloroplast, Golgi apparatus, lysosome. So these organelles which are found inside the cell, these organelles also have their mm, plasma membrane, and almostly they look like same. All are similar in structure. The plasma membrane, which is found on the surface of the Golgi apparatus, on the surface of the mitochondria have an inner membrane and outer membrane as well. When we will discuss the structure of the mitochondria, they have an inner membrane as well as the outer membrane. Then the endoplasmic reticulum, it also have a double membrane. Nucleus have a membrane. So the plasma membrane of these internal organelles are almostly the same in structure, made up of protein, lipids, and carbohydrates. But but they differ in the functions. Obviously, there will be difference in their functions among the membranes found in these internal organelles. Okay. Next is the plasma membrane, is also called as cytoplasmic membrane, cell membrane, or plasma lemma. Plasma lemma, PLASMA, plasma lemma, LEMMA. So, plasma membrane is also known as plasma lemma, cell membrane, or cytoplasmic membrane. Now, let us see about the chemical composition of the plasma membrane. So, about the chemical composition of the plasma membrane, if I say, I have already discussed a little bit about in morning. So, chemically, plasma membrane and other membranes of different organelles are found to contain protein, lipids, and carbohydrate, but in different ratio. It means to say that depending on where this plasma membrane is located, this membrane is located on the red blood cell, or this plasma membrane is located on your white blood cell, or in your hepatic cell, that is liver cell. Depending on that, plasma membrane have this protein, have these lipids and carbohydrate, but in different ratios. The quantity will differ from cell to cell, from organelle to organelle. Like for example, if you want to see the plasma membrane of human red blood cell, within the human red blood cell plasma membrane, the plasma membrane of human red blood cell have 52% of proteins, 40% of lipids, and 8% of carbohydrates only. Right? Okay. If you see the another plasma membrane of myelin sheath, as I have said that myelin sheath is your insulating layer. It forms around the nerve cell and it protects the nerve cell. Okay, it allows the electrical impulses of the nerve cell to transmit quickly and efficiently along the nerve cell. So about this myelin set, if I say, if I want to observe, if I want to see the plasma membrane of myelin sheath cell, the plasma membrane of myelin sheath cell have 18% proteins, so much low comparing to the proteins that are found in the plasma membrane of red blood cell. It has 79% of lipids and 3% of carbohydrates. So depending on cell to cell, the ratios of proteins, lipids and carbohydrates vary. This is what I want to say here. Next is your lipids. So first thing that I will discuss is about lipids. Now lipids are of four types that are found in the plasma membrane: phospholipids, sphingolipids, glycolipids, and sterol. So four major classes of lipids are commonly found in the plasma membrane. Phospholipids, which are mostly found, that's why I have written most abundant, sphingolipids, glycolipids, and your sterols. The most common example of sterol that is found in the plasma membrane is your cholesterol. Now, sterols, this cholesterol is not found in the bacterial cells, okay? And all of these lipids, whether I'm talking about phospholipids or sphingolipids or glycolipids or sterol, all these lipids are amphipathic molecules. What does amphipathic means? Amphipathic means these molecules both have hydrophilic region as well as hydrophobic region. What does hydrophilic means? Hydrophilic means those regions or those functional groups that have a strong affinity for water. That means they will have an ability to interact with the water molecules. And hydrophobic region means those region or those functional groups of the particular molecule that do not have that affinity, that lack means do not have that affinity for that water molecule. So these lipid molecules are amphipathic in nature. That means they both have hydrophobic, they both have hydrophilic region as well as hydrophobic region as well. The hydrophobic regions are actually the fatty acid tails that I have said just in the morning class. And it is the the hydrophobic regions are the fatty acid tails, while the rest of the phospholipids are the hydrophilic regions that can interact with the water molecules. Okay. Next, it is saying the relative proportions of these lipids vary in different membranes. All the different types of lipids that I have said, phospholipids, sphingolipids, glycolipids, sterol, all these lipids types, different types of lipids, they vary. The concentration of these lipids vary in different membranes. Like for example, um, like here it is saying that phospholipids may be acidic phospholipids. Phospholipids may be acidic phospholipids. That means they have a acidic functional group. It contribute 20%. That means it is found less in the plasma membrane, acidic phospholipids. Best example of acidic phospholipids is sphingomyelin. Sphingomyelin. Okay, there is neutral phospholipids. Most of the case we see neutral phospholipids in the plasma membrane. About 80% of the phospholipids are neutral phospholipids found in the plasma membrane. Best example of neutral phospholipids are phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylcholine, phosphatidylserine, etc. Now, these are simplified structure of a phospholipid. Now, generally, the structure of the structure of lipids. If I say the structure of phospholipid, it generally have alcohol group. it generally have an alcohol group attached with the phosphate group. Then there is a glycerol group. That glycerol group is joining two fatty acid chain. It is joining two fatty acid chain. Now these fatty acid chains are actually the hydrophobic regions, while the rest of the region are hydrophilic in nature. Okay, this I have said in your morning class, that alcohol, phosphate and the glycerol group are the hydrophilic region, while as the fatty acid tail represents the hydrophobic region or non-water loving region. So phospholipids are made up of four components. There is a alcohol group. There is a alcohol group. It may be a glycerol or it may be a sphingosine. That glycerol or sphingosine, either glycerol or sphingosine, attached with the fatty acid tails, two fatty acid tails, a pair of fatty acid. Then there is a phosphate group, and an extra alcohol group is attached to the phosphate. So this is the normal structure of phospholipids. There will be alcohol group. That alcohol group may be glycerol or sphingosine. Fatty acid, that glycerol or sphingosine attached with the two fatty acid chains, and there is a phosphate group and an alcohol group attached with the phosphate. Now these fatty acid components are hydrophobic in nature, whereas the rest of the parts of the phospholipids are hydrophilic region. Now depending on what type of alcohol, what type of it contain, whether it contain glycerol or your sphingosine, there are two different types of phospholipids as well. I have also said about the acidic phospholipid, neutral phospholipid, but according to the structure there are also two types of phospholipid depending on whether glycerol is present in the phospholipid or sphingosine, glycerophospholipids and sphingospholipids. So it is saying that phospholipids which are derived from glycerol are called as glycerophospholipids. So those phospholipids which are derived from glycerol are called glycerophospholipids. Glycerophospholipids have glycerol, fatty acid, attached with fatty acid, phosphate group, and an extra alcohol group, for example, choline. Best example of glycerophospholipids are phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine. This example I have said about the neutral phospholipid. Remember in the previous page, neutral. Oh, I have neutral phospholipids. Okay. So these are neutral phospholipids and they are also called as glycerophospholipids. So if an example is given in your examination, you can write this as an example. Then comes sphingospholipids. Sphingospholipids have an alcohol known as sphingosine. Sphingospholipids have an alcohol called sphingosine, and sphingosine is an amino alcohol. What does amino alcohol mean? Amino alcohol are those organic compounds which have an amine group, that is NH2 group, and an alcohol functional group as well. That's why the name comes amino alcohol. So sphingospholipids have this sphingosine, which is an amino alcohol, instead of having glycerol. So in place of glycerol, there is sphingosine attached with the two fatty acid tails, phosphate group, and alcohol attached to the phosphate. Right. So this is about the sphingospholipids. Right. Exact example of sphingospholipids is your sphingomyelin. Now comes the proteins. So, about the proteins, what it is saying here, Just like lipids also, lipids vary, the types of lipids that are found in the plasma membrane vary from cell to cell. Here also it is saying that the amount and types of proteins in the plasma membrane are highly variable. Okay, like the myelin membrane, the myelin sheath membrane, which insulate the nerve cell, which protects the nerve cell axons. Myelin have less than 25% of the membrane protein. That I have just now previously I have seen that the myelin sheath have less protein available, whereas the membranes that are involved in energy transduction, like the plasma membrane, which are the internal membranes of mitochondria or the chloroplast, their membranes have about 75% protein. So those membranes which are involved in energy transduction, they have about 75% of protein, whereas myelin sheath have only 25% protein. So it varies. The amount of protein varies from cell to cell, varies from organelles to organelles also. Okay. Now, according to the position in the plasma membrane, protein are of two main types. Now, this little bit of confusing, but you have to understand. Two types of protein are there according to the position where they are found in the plasma membrane, whether inside the plasma membrane or outside the plasma membrane, whether they are found on the outer lipid layer of the plasma membrane or the inner lipid layer of the plasma membrane, because plasma membrane is a lipid bilayer. It has two layers, one layer on the top, one layer on the bottom. So whether the proteins are found on outside on the surface or inside the surface, whether the protein is sticks to the inside or it spans throughout the plasma membrane. So depending on that, plasma membrane fall into two main categories. One is your integral or intrinsic protein, and another is called peripheral or extrinsic protein. So two types of proteins are there: integral or intrinsic protein and peripheral or extrinsic protein. What is integral protein? Integral protein, they actually firmly associate with the membrane, okay, inside, while the extrinsic protein, they have a weaker association with the lipids by electrostatic interaction. So let us see here what it is saying. So integral protein or intrinsic protein, they are actually embedded in the plasma membrane, and most of the integral protein act as a transmembrane protein. If I see the structure of this integral protein, then you can able to imagine the shape. So here integral proteins has been represented by this. It spans through the plasma membrane. This is the plasma membrane, the lipid bilayer that you can see here. So within that lipid bilayer, we can see this protein that spans around the plasma membrane. Okay. Now this ribbon like structure, you can see spiral like structure like this. These are actually the folded conformations of the protein. In biochemistry, you will learn that protein actually folds when protein formation occurs after translation. Little bit you have learned about translation in class 12, that during translation the RNA is going to be converted into a particular protein. This much you have learned on 12 standard. This protein, after formation of the protein has to fold properly. Why? For two reasons. One is for providing stability, second is to make them proper functional. Okay, so that's why they fold into this ribbon like structure. This ribbon like structure are called as alpha helix like structure. Alpha helix. These are the secondary structure conformations which are found in the protein. So that's another part will be discussed by the Sadhin sir in your biochemistry class. So here I am just talking about the integral protein. So you can see the integral protein that is embedded inside the plasma membrane. This is the lipid bilayer that you can see, the one lipid layer, another lipid layer. So it spans through the membrane, right? Okay. So this is the about the your intrinsic protein, whereas the peripheral or extrinsic protein found outside the plasma membrane, not actually outside it, either attached to the cytosolic surface of the lipid bilayer or to the outer surface of the lipid bilayer. So if I see, so the extrinsic protein either attached to the, so if this is the external environment, environment, okay, if this is the external environment and if this is the cell, okay, a portion of it has been shown here. So this is the cytosol, obviously. So on the cytosolic surface you can see the external proteins, also called as the peripheral proteins, bound. Okay, here it also bound, here it also interacts with the integral proteins as well. And on the external environment, on the outer surface of the lipid bilayer, this is the outer surface of the lipid bilayer, there also the external proteins has been bounded. So normally these extrinsic protein, they have a weaker association with the lipid molecules. You can see they are loosely attached with the lipid molecules by just electrostatic interactions. Here also you can see, here also you can see this extrinsic protein, here it binds to the cytosolic surface of the plasma membrane because inside this is cytosol, and this extrinsic protein is bounding on the external surface, on the outer surface of the plasma membrane, the outer lipid layer of the plasma membrane, right? So this is about the external extrinsic protein or peripheral protein. Now both of these intrinsic and extrinsic protein may be either ectoprotein, it may be either ectoprotein that lies or exposed to the external environment, or extra cytoplasmic surface of the plasma membrane, or it can be a endoprotein that lies or sticking out at the inner or cytoplasmic surface of the plasma membrane. So this is an ectoprotein, this one is a ectoprotein and this is an endoprotein because it is found inside the cell. These extrinsic protein are found inside the cell because here it is cytosol or cytoplasm, and extrinsic protein is this, right? uh, Both are extrinsic, these are the exoproteins and these are the endoproteins. Okay, so a little bit confusion can occur. So these extrinsic proteins are based on location, they may be ectoproteins or endoprotein. So these are the ectoprotein and these are the endoprotein. Okay, now intrinsic protein, as I have said already this line, that they tend to associate firmly with the plasma membrane. So intrinsic protein very strongly they hold to the plasma membrane by your hydrophobic interactions. Okay, while extrinsic protein have a weaker association and are bound to the lipids by electrostatic interaction. Electrostatic interaction are weaker interactions, right? Next, it is saying that the peripheral protein, which are also called as extrinsic proteins, wait, I am zooming in. So peripheral proteins are bound to the membranes primarily by electrostatic interaction and hydrogen bond interaction. So I have repeatedly I have said another in another line that also by the help of hydrostatic hydrogen bond interactions, this peripheral protein bind to the lipids in the plasma membrane, and this peripheral protein do not interact with the hydrophobic regions of the phospholipid bilayer. So the peripheral protein cannot able to interact with the hydrophobic regions, that is the fatty acid regions, the fatty acid tails that represent the hydrophobic region. There the peripheral protein will not interact. Okay. Most peripheral proteins are soluble in aqueous solution. Most peripheral proteins, they are soluble in aqueous solution like spectrin and ankyrin. These two peripheral proteins, spectrin and ankyrin, they are found on the membranes of the red blood cells, and they are a best example of peripheral proteins. So if someone asks you give an example of peripheral proteins, you can say spectrin and ankyrin that are found on the membranes of the red blood cell. Next, it is saying that integral proteins are mostly transmembrane proteins. What does transmembrane protein means? It means that these proteins are embedded from outside to inside. They are embedded within the phospholipid bilayer. So it is saying that these integral proteins are transmembrane proteins which have one or more segments that are embedded within the phospholipid bilayer. And these transmembrane proteins have non-polar amino acid residues. So some non-polar amino acid residues are there present in the transmembrane protein with hydrophobic side chains that able to interact with the fatty acyl groups of the membrane phospholipids. Thus it anchors the protein to the membrane. It simply means that how these transmembrane proteins are interacting with the hydrophobic fatty acid tail inside the plasma membrane, because the transmembrane proteins have non-polar amino acid residues present. Now we all know that proteins are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins, you have learned in your class 11 class. Now, amino acids are of many types, like polar amino acids that interacts with the water, non-polar amino acid that does not interact with the water. For example, most of the cyclic amino acids, like for example tryptophan, tyrosine, phenylalanine, these amino acids are non-polar. Also, other amino acids are also there. I am giving some example. So transmembrane protein have this type of non-polar amino acid in a much greater quantity, which can able to interact with the fatty acyl groups of the membrane phospholipid. That's why they can able to interact with the hydrophobic region of the phospholipid bilayer, and anchors means it holds the protein in that membrane. I think you have understood this much. Okay. Now, on the basis of functions, if I say what is the function of the proteins, okay, what is the function of proteins in the plasma membrane? Proteins of the plasma membrane are classified into three main types: structural protein, enzymes, and transport proteins. So, on the basis of functions, what does protein do in the plasma membrane? Proteins can be classified into structural proteins, which will provide the structural integrity to the plasma membrane, then enzymes, and transport proteins, which are the carrier proteins. So what does structural proteins do? Structural proteins provide the structure support to the, it provides the main backbone of the phospholipids. So structural proteins are extremely lipophilic, that means they can interact with the lipid, and form the main backbone of the plasma membrane, right? The enzymes. There are variety of enzymes found within the plasma membrane, and these enzymes are either ectoenzymes, which are found on the outer layer, lipid layer of the phospholipid, or the endoenzymes, which are found on the cytosolic side of the plasma membrane, and are about 30 different types. There are 30 different types of enzymes which are found. Like, for example, acetyl phosphatase is an important enzyme, acetylcholine esterase, adenosine triphosphatase, the sodium potassium ATPase. This enzyme is specially needed for for movement of the sodium ions and potassium ions across the plasma membrane through the help of ATP. And you have you have seen in your class 11 that it is an example of an active transport. Active transport is such type of transport that occurs in the plasma membrane where energy is involved and the particles is moving against the concentration gradient. That means it is moving from low concentration to high concentration, not from high to low concentration. Okay, for that we need energy, and that is done by this sodium potassium ATPase. Then magnesium ATPase, it is also an example of active transport, an important enzyme. Adenylate cyclase, this enzyme is specially involved in signal transduction pathways like GPCR signaling transduction pathways. Okay, you will see them later on in this in your future semesters, that how adenylate cyclase as a secondary messenger, how as a secondary enzyme, how they actually carry out the functions during signal transduction. Alkaline phosphatase, this enzyme actually normally removes the phosphate group from a certain particular molecule during metabolic reactions. Protein kinase, as the name suggests, kinase means most of the kinase actually what they do, they phosphorylate certain positions in the molecule to make that molecule active. Okay, to make the molecule to do proper functional. Phospholipase A, lactase, these are some of the examples that has been given, the enzymes that are found in the plasma membrane. Now about the transport proteins. Now transport proteins is the main part that has to be mentioned here in a briefly. Transport proteins, as we know, that they transport specific substance across the plasma membrane and other cellular membranes. So generally these transport proteins, they transport specific substances across the plasma membrane and other cellular membrane. So it is, these proteins are involved in selective transport of the molecules of the ions and substances across the membrane. Transport proteins are responsible for selective transport of molecules, and that transport protein may be of two types. Transport proteins are of two types: carrier protein or channel protein. So here now we get a difference according to the function, according to the transport of the molecules across the plasma membrane. Protein are of two types: carrier proteins and channel proteins. So this is the actually the function of your proteins in the plasma membrane. First you can see transport channel, where a channel is being created by the transport protein and are actually transporting the molecules across the plasma membrane. Okay, second case, you see that these proteins can act as enzyme that catalyze certain reactions, catalyze the substrates to get products. Okay, some of the proteins act as a cell surface receptor, where a particular ligand, external molecule on outside the membrane, attaches with the protein called as receptor, and interact with that receptor to make some conformational change in the receptor that catalyzes some reactions inside, which carries out the which carries out the reaction inside the cell, the metabolic reactions inside the cell for getting a desirable products. Okay, then this protein can be attached with carbohydrate molecules to form glycolipid, glycoprotein. So if a if a carbohydrate molecule attached with the proteins known as glycoproteins, okay, sometimes proteins can also act as adhesion property. It has an adhesion property. It also attach the cytoskeleton to maintain the shape of the cell. Actually, what are cytoskeleton? Cytoskeleton are also other organelles which are found inside the cell, normally the microtubules, actin filaments, intermediate filaments. They form the cytoskeleton that actually surrounds the cell, that forms a network to maintain the shape of the shell actually. And microtubules are, especially we know that they play important role during cell division in the form of spindle fibers, right, that allows the chromosomes to migrate to the opposite poles during your anaphase stage of your cell cycle, both in mitosis and in meiosis process. So much of function done by the protein, right? Now let us see about the carrier protein first. Carrier protein, that I have said that the transport proteins may be of two types. Transport proteins may be of two types. Okay, I am zooming in. So your transport proteins are of two types: carrier protein and transport and channel protein. I have written this in the end of your in your notes: carrier protein and channel protein. Okay, carrier protein and channel protein. So we will now discuss about the carrier protein now. Okay, so carrier protein, some new terms you will learn now. Carrier protein can be uniporters or co-transporters. Okay, carrier proteins may be uniporters or co-transporters. Co means to help. Okay, sahajogi, sahayogi. Okay, so uniporters. Uni means single. Porters means to port them. Okay, in game you say na portal, going from one place to another place, just like that. That type of fictional thing has been mentioned here. So porters mean they will allow a single molecule to pass through the cell membrane. Co-transporters means with the help of another molecule, with the help of one molecule, other molecule will pass. Okay, so that's it is written here. Uniporters transport single solute from one side of the membrane to the other side. So uniporters means uni means single solute molecule will be transported from one side of the membrane to the other side of the membrane, and the single non-coupled transport by a uniporter is called uniport. So here that it simply means without the involvement of another solute molecule, simply a single solid molecule is passing from the membrane, from the outer membrane to the inner membrane and interstitial cytosolic surface, and vice versa. That is called as uniport. The process is called uniport, and the proteins that are involved in uniport are called as uniporters. Similarly, co-transporters. Okay, I am going to a diagram now, so you can able to understand now. So this is uniport, where you can see a solute molecule is directly passing through the plasma membrane. it is entering inside, or it may also go outside also with the help of these carrier proteins. Next is the co-transporters. Co-transporters mediate coupled transport. Coupled means pair, two makes a pair, right? So co-transporter mediate coupled transport. That means there will be involve of another solid molecule for transporting the other solid molecules. Coupled transport involves either simultaneous transfer of a second solute in the same direction called symport, or transfer of the second solute in the opposite direction called antiport. Now, if I show you in the diagram practically, you can able to understand this term. What is symport and antiport? You can see two solute molecules present on one side of the plasma membrane. Suppose it is present on the extracellular surface of the plasma membrane, and this is the cytosol, right? Now, the solid molecule is passing, but with the help of another solid molecule. They are moving in the same direction. The two solid molecules are moving in the same direction, passing through the plasma membrane. That is why it is called as symport. And if they move in the opposite direction, like here S1 solute is moving in towards the cytoplasmic face of the plasma membrane, whereas the solute number 2 is moving outside, that is called as antiport. Okay, anti means opposite. Okay, so this is the thing about the symport and antiport. It is saying that the transport that involves movement of the protein in the same direction, sorry, movement of the solid molecules in the same direction called symport, or if the transfer of the second solute moves in the opposite direction is called antiport. So this is the diagram of symport, uniport and antiport. Okay, this is antiport. I have not written this one. This is your antiport. Okay, now three types of carrier mediated transport involving the carrier proteins function as uniporters and co-transporters. So there are about three proteins that actually called as carrier proteins, which function as uniporters and co-transporters, because co-transporters are of two types, uniport and symport. So the proteins which cause symport are called as symporters, and the proteins that cause antiport are called antiporters. Antiporters, sorry, process is called antiport, but the proteins which causes the antiports to do is called are called antiporters. So in co-transporters, two proteins are involved, and in uniporters, only one protein is involved. Now comes the different type of protein. I have said about a carrier protein. Okay, now about the channel protein. About a channel protein, if I say channel protein forms a channel, it forms a channel in the plasma membrane. It forms a channel in the plasma membrane. If this is the lipid bilayer, if this is the lipid layer, outer lipid layer, if this is the inner lipid layer formed of okay, so this forms a channel protein forms a channel through which your protein molecules will the solid molecules will pass through these channels, and they will pass through the concentration gradient. Okay, so channel protein can transport the solutes. It can transport the solutes down to the concentration gradient. What does concentration gradient means? You have learnt in your chemistry class, in your class 12. Okay, But in biology, let us see about what does concentration gradient means. So concentration gradient refers to the gradual change in the concentration of solutes in a solution. Concentration gradient refers to the gradual change in the concentration of solutes in a solution as a function of distance through a solution. So, depending on the concentration of solutes in a solution, concentration gradient occurs because there will be a gradual change in the concentration of solutes within a solution as a function of distance through a solution. Suppose in this place there is a high concentration of solute, and if there is a low concentration of solute, automatically the solute will move from high concentration to low concentration. And the opposite thing may also occur. If there is high concentration of solute, if there is low concentration of solute, then the solvent will move from this to this direction, because here if the concentration of solvent solute is minimum, that means solvent is high here. And in this position, if the concentration of solute is here high, that means solvent is low. So obviously solvent will also move from an area of high to low concentration. So as we know that solution essentially have two major components, solvent and solute, and concentration gradient result from unequal distribution of the particles. So due to unequal distribution of the particles, like your ions, okay, between the two solution, the intracellular fluid, that is the solution inside the cell, and the extracellular fluid, that is your solution outside the cell. So it simply means that concentration gradient is created due to unequal distribution of the particles. See through this line. Concentration gradient simply occurs as a result of unequal distribution of the particles. What particles? Ions that are found between the two solution, the intracellular fluid, which is the solution inside the cell, and the extracellular fluid, the solution outside the cell. In a simple manner, I am trying to say you here in this way. Suppose this is the plasma membrane. Suppose this is the plasma membrane. Okay, I'm using red color now. Okay, pink color. This is the lipid bilayer, and this is the cytoplasmic surface, the cytoplasmic side. This is the extracellular side. Now if on the extracellular side there are if on the extracellular side there are solutes, right, present in high quantities, and the same solute in the cytoplasmic side are low in quantities, automatically the solute will pass from an area of high concentration to the area of low concentration. So the difference in the solute concentration means the ions, the other macromolecules, okay, that causes to form that concentration gradient. Similarly, if I said about the solute concentration here, similarly applicable to the solvent as well. I have said that on this side, on the extracellular side, there is high concentration of solutes. That means there is a low concentration of solvent here. There is a low concentration of solvent here. Low solvent. There is low solvent. And here there is low solute. That means there is high solvent. You know about solvent. You know the definition of solvent. Solvent are the aqua liquid solutions where the solute mix actually. dissolves actually. Now the same rule applies to here also. It will move from high solvent concentration to low solvent concentration. That creates, so it creates that concentration gradient, and this is how movement of the molecule occurs, right? So concentration gradient results from unequal distribution of particles like ions between the two solutions, the intracellular fluid, the solution which are found inside the cell, and the extracellular fluid, that is the solution which is found outside the cell. Now this imbalance between the solutes or the imbalance between the solvents will cause the solutes to move from an area of highly dense area to an area of less dense area. That means it will move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration, and this movement will be done to establish an equilibrium, to make the concentrations of the solute equal in both inside and outside the membrane, and to eliminate that imbalance of solute concentration. This thing you have studied in your chemistry class, in your biology also, in class 11, also in your class 9 book also, the osmosis, right? The hypertonic, hypotonic, isotonic, all these things are given here also. The plasmolysis which occurs in the plant cell. How it occurs in the plant cell? Remember, we use a plant cell have a cell wall, plant cell have a cell wall, right? And then it has the plasma membrane inside which there is a plant cell. Now what happened, we use such solution which has high concentration, which has um, which has high concentration of solutes. Okay, we use such cells so that it has high concentration of solutes. Suppose I am giving in orange, high concentration of solutes outside the cell, like for example we use salt water solution. Okay, and inside the cell that solute is found in a less concentration. So obviously it simply means that if there is high concentration of solute outside the cell, it means there will be less fluid available, there is less water available, there is less solvent available. And if there is less concentration of solute inside the cell, that means there is high concentration of solvent available. So eventually what happen, the liquid or the solvent will move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. And what will happen if excess water removes out from the cell? It will shrink. It will obviously, it will get shrink. So it will look like this. The cell wall will be intact because it is made up of cellulose, but the plasma membrane gets shrink, look like this. This is called plasmolysis. So based on the concentration gradient, we can do this type of experiments, right? Now this movement will be done to establish an equilibrium. Okay, this movement will be carried out to establish an equilibrium and to eliminate the imbalance of solute concentration between the two solutions. Okay, I think you have understood this part. Now on the next day, on the next class, I will try to discuss with you about the other things also, like your the about more about the channel proteins, like the gated and non-gated channels. Then I will discuss about the active transport and passive transport and the other functions of the plasma membrane. Then also the other things also, other aspects also, like the movement of the lipids. Okay, different type of, with the help of examples, it has to be said here also actually. Because example based questions mainly come in your exams, direct questions actually does not comes. Okay, so the next class is on your Monday, and on Monday I will try to I will teach you about the biotechnology and human welfare part. Okay, let's see what topic I can discuss with you. And after this lecture, if you have any doubts regarding this lecture, kindly just you can question me in your in the WhatsApp group that I have created today. Okay. And at the end of this chapter, that is the plasma membrane, that part, I will take a revision, MCQ revision mainly. Okay, because most of the questions that are coming in your exam is of MCQ type. Okay, so I will take revision test in the form of MCQ. Just go through that questions. Okay, so this much for all.